I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Thanks for being here. We're going to talk about nutrition and the role of a great culture. And Happy Nutrition Month. I want to mention that as well. So culture isn't just about work and happy hours. It's the way we work. It's the environment that we work in, and nutrition absolutely plays a role in that. So we're so excited to have Dr. Lynn Wagner with us today to talk about the role of nutrition in the workplace. A little bit about Motion Connected. We are an employee engagement and experience platform. We provide practical, easy to use solutions that promote health and well-being, all while providing a positive employee experience. So today's webinar, we're going to talk about nutrition and what that means in the workplace and how it can look in the workplace. A great workplace culture is one where employees feel valued, where they feel cared for, and one that cultivates feelings of satisfaction and enhances well-being. When we eat well, we feel well, and there's definitely outcomes in the workplace from that. We're more productive, lower rates of absenteeism, and higher levels of engagement. And we all know that the workplace can have a positive or a negative effect on an individual's health and well-being, and certainly nutrition plays a role with that. So we're so pleased today to be joined by Dr. Lynn Wagner, a good friend of Motion Connected. Just a little bit about Lynn and Dr. Wagner. Her goal is to be part of the transformation of medicine. In her career as an emergency medicine physician, she realized that so much what we do in Western medicine is really a Band-Aid approach and really does not get to the root cause of the problem, of the health problem, or of the issue. So she transitioned her practice to integrative medicine, a specialty that combines the philosophies of both Eastern and Western medicine, along with an emphasis on a healthy lifestyle to give patients the best and optimum path to health and well-being. And she feels that by combining a healthy lifestyle changes with the integrative approach, we can achieve optimum health. So welcome, Lynn, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, so we want to hear from you first, and we're going to launch a poll here. We want to know, what nutrition obstacles do you face in your workplace? So you can choose more than one here. Is it the vending machines, the break room treats, or, everyone has that one employee that brings in donuts, right? Or that one client. Or is it really the lack of structure, meal breaks, especially with remote employees or hybrid employees, or limited access to water, fresh fruits and vegetables? All right, we're going to go ahead and close the poll, and let me share the results here. Okay, so 43% still have the vending machines, 64% with the break room treats or access to treats, only 14% with lack of structure or meal breaks is an obstacle, and then limited access to fresh fruits, vegetables, and finally lack of hydration stations. Okay, good to know. So let's go back to our presentation here and talk to Lynn about what are the current state of eating habits in America, and what are you seeing nutrition-wise?
So I would say, and it's beyond what I'm seeing, it's very much statistics. Our standard American diet has become a highly processed, high sugar, unhealthy types of fat type of a diet. And so what used to be a diet where we ate foods that were whole in form, meaning they were very close to how they were originally grown or produced, has become a diet where the foods we eat, literally, like to our ancestors, they wouldn't even be able to recognize it as food. It's just been so processed and so manipulated that it doesn't even really, I would say it doesn't count as food. But any of us who walk through the grocery store, you can see this and just look at all the carts around you, and even in your own cart, and actually look at what the food is that's in the carts, and most of it isn't really food anymore. It gives you calories and it'll keep you alive, but it's completely devoid of nutrients and vitamins and minerals and all the things that make us have a nice life, keep our bodies healthy, and keep us alive longer, and even feel good while we're alive longer.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
And the
yeah.
result of that, I'm just going to finish with that. The result of that is our diseased country. So the rates of, like you see here, obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure, all these diseases is just like, if you look at the charts, it's just through the roof. And it is a direct result of what we are feeding our bodies.
Have you seen any direct impact from the pandemic from the last 2 years? Have these
Yes.
rates, okay, continue
Yes.
to skyrocket up?
Yes. I mean, because we know that people are eating more, they're drinking more alcohol. There's been stress, and stress is a direct, can cause weight gain and poor choices when you eat. So there's definitely been a very big weight gain in addition to the pandemic, which has then led to more disease states. So yeah, it's unfortunate, but we can reverse it. That's what I'm here for.
Okay, so let's get into that more. What are the benefits of eating well?
So that's what I think is so cool. And I didn't even realize this until I was in my 30s, because I really didn't do a big solid nutrition change for myself personally until I was in my 30s. So I always encourage people to just try it yourself, and it's going to make more sense to you when you feel it than just me telling you what it feels like. So when you eat better and you eat food that fuels your body well, you have more energy, you sleep better, you have more mental clarity, you have less chance of mental health problems because your mood is going to be more stable because your blood sugar isn't spiking up and down. Your body doesn't hurt as much, you get less inflammation. So like the results are your digestion works better. I mean, I have patients who come to me who have had IBS for 10 years, and all we do is change their diet and their IBS goes away. So I mean, there can be amazing results that you can experience by just changing your diet.
And also the role of nutrition in the workplace. So with how we feel, the mental component, the physical component, how can proper nutrition, how can that make employees in the workplace feel happy or feel good?
So it just goes back to like what nutrition does for you as an individual. So when you feel stable, you're less reactive. So let's say someone says something that's a little off at work, you're going to be less reactive. You're going to have more mental clarity. So you're going to be able to stay on task and focused on the work that you're supposed to be doing. You're going to connect better with other people because you're happier. You're going to connect better with other people because you don't have pain, you don't have fatigue, you're not having all these ongoing inflammatory type conditions that make you maybe not as likely to connect well with other people. And you're just going to be more productive. You'll get more done.
It's interesting that you said less reactive. That's something that I don't think I ever thought of in relation to proper nutrition.
So yeah, so basically what happens is when you have poor nutrition and your body's in a state of chronic inflammation, which is what happens when you eat unhealthy a lot. And I'm not about perfectionism. I like my treats just like everyone else. But when you do it too much and you're in this chronic state of inflammation, you become more reactive because when external events happen to people, their amount of reaction depends on them internally and how they are internally. You know what I mean? And nutrition and inflammation is a part of that. So there's other things that are part of that as well, but you're more likely to be less reactive to external events when you are stable with your blood sugar and you have low inflammation.
That's great to know. That's wonderful advice. Could you go into emotional eating a bit? And I think it's something that certainly, as you mentioned, in response to the pandemic.
Yes.
Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we've all experienced it. I experienced it. So emotional eating is when you use food as comfort. So we can use a lot of things as comfort. And when you use a thing as comfort, what happens is you're trying to get a dopamine response. Dopamine is a pleasure hormone. So like doing cocaine can spike your dopamine. Drinking alcohol can spike your dopamine. Shopping, gambling. So there's lots of things that can give you that pleasure sensation, and eating is one of those things. So it's obviously not as severe as like a bad addiction, but food can give you that same response. So a lot of us, when we're having stress or loneliness or just feeling tired, we will use food to cope because it gives you a little bit of pleasure. So it kind of buffers that discomfort that you're feeling. I do this all the time. If I have a hard day at work, my kids know when mom's in the kitchen eating potato chips like a mad fiend that maybe I was a little stressed out that day. You know what I mean? So I mean, there's very few people who don't do it. I think it's just a level of some people aren't even aware that they do it. And then B, some people have more of like an addictive personality and have a harder time curbing that emotional eating tendency.
Okay.
But it's really, really important to be aware of it, because then you can kind of watch your habits and try to make different choices or change your patterns so that it doesn't happen as often.
Mm-hmm. I think it's helpful to know too, or just emphasize that, even normalize the behavior a bit, that it is
Sure.
a normal response. Like, I'm not crazy because I come home and I am
Right.
home and eat,
Right.
open up that bag of chips. But do you have tips to combat that?
Oh yeah, there's tons. So there's definitely tons. So first, it's really important to learn why you need that dopamine hit. So if you're overtired and you can sleep more, sleep more. If you're overstressed and you can cut the stress down in your life, obviously do that. If you have emotional or baggage from your past traumas, and that's why you're coping, because you're pretty traumatized, look at that, do some counseling or do something to work on that. So it's those are some of the things you can do to curb it. There's also you can learn to do different habits. So one of the things I love to tell people is, like, a lot of us crave sweet treats in the afternoon. Like my office is right next to a candy shop. So Saruji's. So at 2, 3 in the afternoon, I will often want to go and get a dark chocolate turtle with caramel and cashews and everything. So, I tell people, so just have like maybe a bar of good quality dark chocolate and some figs or dates. So you're still going to so look for an alternative or a different type of habit, or drink a glass of water, or go for a walk, or call a friend. So think of an alternative option. And then there's actually supplements you can use. So I do use, and even medications. So there's supplements and medications you can use when people have really, really severe emotional eating tendencies, that you can help them to curb that problem. So that's really nice. So there's tons of options.
Yeah, that's that I did not know that. I had no idea there were supplements either.
Yeah, it's really cool.
So obviously nutrition plays a role in overall physical health. But can you expand upon that in the workplace, and what that means for building a healthy workforce?
So I think if you're thinking about it on a physical plane, healthy nutrition, obviously, maybe not obviously, but it will build a healthier body. So your body will be stronger. So depending on what kind of work you're doing, you're going to be less likely to get injured. You're going to be less likely to get sick and get an infection. Like during COVID, we saw that this was look at COVID, what it did to people who weren't healthy. That was like a slam dunk, right? You're less likely to have sick days, call in sick, like I said, get injured. And you're just going to be stronger. So you're probably going to be able to do better work, even if it's just computer work. Like, I mean, stronger in the brain. Like, it's not just body strength, it's brain strength. And even like ergonomically, if you think about it, if your body's less inflamed, you're going to be more resilient. Maybe if you have a weird position at your computer, or if you're doing a repetitive exercise, you're going to be less likely to develop like a tendonitis or a chronic pain because of that, if that makes sense. So you're just less likely on all planes physically to have a problem with your body. And you're more likely to heal faster if you do have a problem. If you do get injured or if you do get sick, you're going to rebound faster.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. And I think that what's also key here is that regardless of the type of work that you do, even if you're working from home, you're staying at home, remote, you're at your computer, at your desk, overall physically you can feel better with healthy nutrition.
Yes.
Okay, we have a question come in, but let's come back to that. I want to make sure that we get to this slide and really kind of address what the current state, kind of going back to that current state of the standard American diet and what that means in the day-to-day. So Lynn, what are the potential, I don't know if pitfalls is necessarily the right word, but what do we need to be aware of?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the pitfalls of the standard American diet, and you can just kind of like bullet it down. So one would be, and it's not on this slide, but I should have added it or had you add it, but lack of fiber. So when you process a food, you lose that structure of the food because you're basically like refining it and pulling out some stuff from it. So you lose that fiber, and fiber is really important for the health of your digestive system. It's important for your cholesterol levels. cancer prevention. So fiber is really important. We need that structure. And so a lot of our foods in the standard American diet have been stripped of their fiber. So it's very devoid of fiber. There is more sugar. So back in the, what was that, the 90s or the 80s, when we went through that low fat craze where everyone thought fat was really bad for you, what they did is to make foods taste good is that they added sugar to the food, so that when they took the fat out, they added sugar instead so it would still taste good and be palatable. And what we've seen since then is this high rate of diabetes and fatty liver disease and all of the downstream effects of added sugar. So just added sugar in your body is going to cause lots of inflammation, insulin resistance, and chronic disease states. I would say portion size is huge. I mean, if you go to a restaurant and you get a portion, just think about it. It usually is good enough to feed a family of 4. Yeah. And so what you surround yourself is what becomes your reality. So when we're constantly getting these portion sizes, it's what we're going to end up doing at home. It's what we're going to do when we pack our lunches. It becomes our normal. So we're kind of like in a chronically overfed state. And on top of that, we're grazing all day long. So we're eating larger meals and then we're snacking all day long and grazing. And so we never give our body a chance to really like fast or rest or have a break from caloric consumption. And then, I see on here definitely lack of proper hydration. I have patients all the time who will tell me they drink like no more than 1 glass of water in a day. And they're like, oh, I'm really tired and I feel achy and I have all these health issues. And I mean, that's where we start. It's like, let's just drink more water. And then definitely high sodium. So I'm not a big anti-salt person. I don't think salt is as bad as it has been made out to be in the past, but that's because when I'm thinking of like natural food salt is okay. But definitely when you get into like the chips and the processed and packaged foods, then they're definitely like way over sodiumed. So that is definitely a potential pitfall. And then lastly, I would say, again, not on this list, but it's devoid of nutrients and minerals and fruits and vegetables. So those fresh foods, those colorful foods, and I'm not talking about synthetic colors like the red dyes and stuff, I'm talking about natural colors. Those all come with things called phytonutrients and antioxidants, which have very specific beneficial health properties that prevent disease and just improve the overall quality of your health.
Okay, there's a lot to think about in that. I have a lot of questions, and I'm wondering if anyone else has some questions on that. But could you give a couple tips to what are some great ways to increase fiber intake?
Sure. Yeah. So fiber is, I always just tell my patients, like, honestly, just Google what foods are high in fiber. That's a really easy way to do it. Second easy thing to do is use a calorie tracker on your phone. And like for a couple days, most of the calorie trackers will also tell you how much fiber you're getting. So if you enter everything you eat for a couple days into one of the popular calorie trackers, it will also tell you how much fiber you're getting. Women need about 25 grams, men need about 30 to 35 grams. And then you can very intentionally choose to add foods to your diet that are high in fiber. So a couple of the heavy hitters for fiber are like beans and legumes, oats, chia seeds. I know some of the berries are really high in fiber, and then you can just start looking at labels when you buy food that has labels and start to just really look at the fiber and make some choices like, oh, I'm going to get that has more fiber. And you have to be careful. Like not everyone tolerates fiber as well. So if you are intentionally adding fiber to your diet, you want to do it slow. And if it does cause digestive discomfort, you have to kind of like trial and error with some different foods. Like some people don't do really well with beans. So it really depends on you and your gut and your microbiome and that kind of stuff.
Okay. What about water? Because we sometimes get that question a lot when we're doing our different health education sessions. So what do you recommend with water?
So first thing I recommend is I don't really tell people how many glasses they need a day or how many ounces because it really depends on your sex, your size, and your level of activity. So if you're doing a big cardio workout, you're going to need more water. If you're just sitting at a desk all day and you're not really sweating at all, you're going to need less water. If you're out in the hot sun, you know what I'm saying? So it really depends on your environment and your personal situation. I have people look at their urine. So get used to literally looking in the toilet after you urinate and look at the color of your urine. So if you just had beets or vitamins or a medication that causes color change, then you can disregard it. But otherwise, it should always be odorless, mostly, and a pale yellow color. you know? So if it starts to look dark and concentrated and you can actually smell it, then you're probably dehydrated. That's like the most simple way to do it. Cause then you don't have to think about numbers. You don't have to like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think
that's a great
some
tip.
people challenge themselves. They'll buy like a water bottle that has the number of ounces in it and they'll be like, I'm going to try to drink 4 of these a day. And I think that's great. But I would also just start to get in the habit of kind of looking at your urine.
You're creating that self-awareness as well.
Yep.
So in the workplace, what do you think, Lynn, what is the number one thing that people could do for their employees to improve nutrition habits?
So, I mean, I am someone who has worked in the emergency room and in clinical settings where there's break rooms. So I am, and cafeterias. So I'm totally understand like the cafeteria food and the break room. I mean, emergency room break rooms are notoriously just like full of unhealthy food, you know, because people are stressed, they're working weird hours. It's just all comfort food. And so, you know, it's hard. So, first of all, I think honestly, it's in education. You know, it's educating the employees, because I don't know if we'll ever get to the point where that stuff's not there, because there's always going to be the people that want to have the treat jar and want to have the candy jar and want to bring in the donuts. You know, I don't think that's ever going to go away, unless those foods become illegal, which that's not going to happen. So it's more about creating the awareness and then having that food be available. You know, I have seen places where workplaces have tried to bring in fresh fruit and vegetables and make the vending machines all healthy. And you know what happens? People still choose the unhealthy food. So you can't go too far, because I just think it's unrealistic, but it's just creating the awareness and then giving them some possibility. You don't have to be perfect about it. You don't have to have a big, beautiful, like bouquet of fruit and vegetables available. You know what I mean? But maybe have a couple options in the vending machine, having a couple options at the cafeteria, so that those people who are aware can make that decision. You know, and then congratulating your employees who are doing a good job, which I think a lot of the workplaces already do with, you know, incentivizing and benefits and things like that.
For sure. Yes. And we're going to get more into actual programs in a minute. But in terms of engagement and having engaged employees in the workplace, what does nutrition do for keeping individuals engaged at work?
I mean, I think it goes back to what we talked about in the beginning, is when you're eating healthy and you have less inflammation, so you're not eating too much sugar, you're not eating a lot of toxins, your brain is going to be clearer, so you're more likely to be engaged with the people around you. You're probably going to be more interested in your life and have a positive outlook, which is just going to make you more interested in your job in general. And I think it's going to create, again, engagement with your coworkers and the people that are around you, because you're going to be less reactive. I also see, and I've seen this in my workplaces, when you start to kind of build that momentum of healthiness and nutrition, and there's an awareness, and then people are bringing in dishes, they're sharing recipes, you know, they're doing potlucks with healthy food. There can be a really nice sense of community. And I've seen that in the food program, where when you have a workplace that's doing a food program and you have more people engaged in it, then they're sharing ideas, they're sharing recipes, they're talking about what they ate at home the night before, and then they're bringing in healthier options. So it's definitely a very big snowball effect, but usually it starts with that one kind of wild card who's doing it first, and then everyone else will follow suit.
Absolutely. And it goes back to that social component as well, right? And eating and meals are so social.
So social.
Yeah, and when you're able to bring in those healthier options or offer those or encourage those along with some awareness, absolutely, that makes a big difference.
Yeah, it's getting people to choose to make hummus with vegetables instead of the beer cheese dip and tortilla chips. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And having them get excited about it and then feeling good, and then it's just this like self-perpetuating process.
Yes. Yes. Okay, my slides are not advancing in this. I have no idea what's happening. So let me just get caught up here of where we are so that everyone can see what we are talking about next. And it's really, we have one more poll coming up. So in terms of the workplace and a well-developed nutrition program, what are the outcomes that you've seen from a good nutrition program, either with your clients or in the type of workplace environment? What does that do?
So, I mean, I don't love to talk about weight, but a lot of times when people do a nutrition program, they want to lose some weight. I mean, we all at times want to lose weight. So that's definitely one of the things I've seen both on an individual level and in a group level is weight loss. I've definitely seen standard is better sleep, less pain. People have like plantar fasciitis or these chronic tendonitis issues, and the pain and inflammation will go down. More energy, better mood. I've seen relationships get better, especially when you have a couple or like a household that's working on it together, or like I said, a workplace that's working on it together. There's that commonality between the people that just builds a better relationship, and they're doing something that they feel good about and positive about. So it's just a really nice result. And I would say definitely disease prevention and even disease reversal. You take something like type 2 or non-insulin dependent diabetes. And for a lot of people who have that disease state, it's a reversible disease state, largely with diet and exercise. Not everyone, obviously, but a lot of people.
For sure. We've seen
cake.
Sorry, can you say that again?
I was gonna say that's just like the icing on the cake. I mean, I think I always tell my patients, or even if I work in urgent care, like 90% of the people, maybe 75% who I see are going to either see a reversal of their disease process or a significant improvement in it by nutrition changes alone. So it's a really powerful tool.
It is. And what we've seen when in the workplace with our programs with Motion Connected, when there are biometric outcomes that possibly aren't even associated with the workplace or with benefits, but it builds awareness by doing those biometrics. And it's not even when they're even done every year, but just creating that awareness around it and then educating on top of that of how to make it better. And it goes back to what you just said of how nutrition can really reverse that disease state or even improve it by a couple points, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to launch our next poll, and we want to know, how do you make your nutrition programs accessible in the workplace? So again, you can choose more than one option here, whether you use an app or a portal, if you use tailored messaging for the program, or offer support to specific locations or subgroups of employees, offer flexibility, and diverse and inclusive programming. So mostly, I'm going to go ahead and close this now. Most of the respondents go ahead and, let me share this, use an app or a portal, which is great, or offer programs or support for specific locations. And finally, flexibility to accommodate all employees. Great. So from the Motion Connected side, wellness programs or organizations that we work with, they offer education sessions or recipe guides, access to a registered nutritionist, swag or incentive items to promote those healthy behaviors. And I think what may be key here, especially in the workplace, is including the spouse and the family, because it's not just the behaviors at work, or even especially if individuals are at home or a hybrid or remote situation, it's including the whole family in those nutrition habits. Lynn, do you have anything to add to this?
I would say like all of the above is great. I think some people really like the education sessions, and people like them when they're able to attend live or when they're available after the fact. So a lot of what I do is videos that people get after the fact, and that works really well. People love recipes. Like the more recipes you can give, the better, period. Mm-hmm. You just give them. A nutritionist is great, but you have to be careful. You have to have a good nutritionist, because sometimes if they go based off old teachings, it might not be the greatest thing. Swag or incentive items, I don't have a ton of experience with, but the spouse and family piece is huge. So, the spouse and family aren't always willing, especially when you think of kids. And there's definitely times when the spouse is like totally checked out and does not want to do anything to do with healthy eating. But when you do have an interested spouse, And and especially if they have a good relationship, it works really well. And I've even seen it improve their relationship because, let's say you have a couple that is kind of living separate lives and doing their own thing, and if they connect on a level of food and it makes them both feel better, it can be just a really nice, cool thing for the family.
Oh, I love that. That's a great benefit. That's wonderful. So I think meeting employees where they are, understanding where their needs are, and delivering this information, whether it's virtual or hybrid in the office, and then to the laborers or the manufacturing floors, that is what really makes a big difference. And also utilizing technology to reach each demographic. So,
yeah, I would say you really have to consider your audience. When I work with my patients, I have patients who are highly educated on food and nutrition. They eat these really healthy diets, almost to the extreme. And then I have patients who have no concept of nutrition at all. So you really have to be aware that you're going to have a wide range and offer different levels of education and information and different price points. One thing I was talking about recently with someone from Motion Connected was with inflation and pricing right now, we have to be aware that we can't start, shoving healthy food down someone's throat if it's not going to be affordable for them. So it's teaching them how to actually choose the healthy foods that aren't going to cost too much, that might actually be cheaper than the processed foods.
Could you go through a couple of those? That would be good choices.
Yeah, so like eating seasonally, so eating vegetables and fruits that are in season, especially if you can get it from like a co-op or a farmer's market or something like that, that's going to be cheaper. Using whole grains and beans, you can buy huge bags of rice and beans for really, really cheap. People are really intimidated by that, but once you learn how to make beans from dried to make them, eat it palatable, it's so easy and like so cheap, and it's learning how to maybe rely less on meat and choosing meat more as a condiment. So when meat prices get really high or eggs get really high or other protein sources, you use other foods as protein sources and you still use the meat for that good flavor, but maybe you don't use a big cut of it, you use a smaller piece. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So those are all things, they've proven over and over again that you can really eat a very healthy diet with very, very little money. It doesn't have to be fancy halibut and, grass-fed beef and all that kind of stuff.
For sure. And I think that's something that we can all relate to. Every time I leave the grocery store, I just, it blows my mind how much things cost today.
Right.
And using those bulk bins, it is definitely more affordable. And using meat as a condiment, that's an excellent tip. Mm-hmm. Excellent. So, Dr. Wagner, you have developed the Food for Fuel program. Can you go over what Food for Fuel is and what really what it consists of and what it does?
For sure. So I created Food for Fuel, years ago when I was working with my patients one-on-one, and over and over again, I just started to say the same thing. And I'm the kind of person that I get bored easily. So it's like, I can't keep saying this over and over again. And so it just, in all honesty, I was like, I can't, this is too much. So it was my way of packaging it in something that I could have my patients do outside of our office visit, because it's something that they could do at home and I could spend time with them one-on-one doing doctoring, and they could do the nutrition with me, but more in a guided video format. And it also allowed people who weren't my private patients to be, because that can only be so many people, to also learn what I wanted to teach about food and nutrition. I found that there was just a really big lack of availability of proper nutrition teaching out there, and people were really struggling. And so it was my way of giving people what I thought was the best package of nutrition in an easy, palatable way of getting it, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
I was gonna say, it's definitely been a labor of love.
Well, I have viewed all of these modules, and there are such wonderful tips included, not only for an individual, but for a couple and for a family, and such good reminders. And it's so approachable, right? It's so easy to start to implement some of these tips and just really eating better so that you feel better overall. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the best lessons coming out of it is the emphasis that food is medicine. and it can do what you eat impacts you so much, right?
Yep.
So Motion Connected actually is partnered with Dr. Wagner for the Food for Fuel program, and this is the outcomes of one of our clients and what they've seen in 2021 for their employees that completed Food for Fuel. Number one, I think what was really surprised us the most was that it attracted the individuals that could really benefit from it. It attracted those that were overweight or obese. And a lot of times in wellness programming, it's the tenet of keep the healthy healthy. And it's the challenge of really reaching those that could use these tips, that could use the health improvement or the population health management. So we got that in the Food for Fuel program. Not only did they not gain weight, they lost weight as well. So it supported weight loss, and the kicker, which also surprised us, is that it created more healthy behaviors. This same group of individuals traveled 6,000 or more steps on average than they were before. So they were more active because they were feeling better and they had lost weight. So these are wonderful outcomes that we saw with again, just one group. Okay, so Lynn, just to wrap up here, what tips do you have for an organization trying to implement healthier eating or better nutrition?
Absolutely. So I would say first off, it's awareness and education. So it's literally like learning what proper nutrition is, learning what healthy food is, because so many of us just don't even know, we just don't even think about it. And there's so much conflicting information out there with all of these different popular diets and trends and now social media that it's super over. Diet books, if you go to the bookstore and you look at the number of diet books that are there, like how does anyone even have a clue where to start? So it's really just getting the education about what's proven, what's scientifically proven, has good data behind it, good results like you were seeing, and learning about it, right? And then it's disseminating that information in a way that is palatable for the people who are receiving it. So it's not being condescending, it's not being judgmental, it's not coming at it, in a dictatorship type way. It's just being more like, hey, we really want to help you. We want you to feel good. We want all of us to have a great life and feel healthy and do great at our job and even be outside of our job. And then approaching it that way, and then giving your employees and the organization members the tools they need to start making the steps without it feeling too onerous or hard. So it's giving those couple of options in the cafeteria and in the vending machine. It's giving them the education on how to cook things, so giving them the recipes, giving them the awareness that it's not as hard as you think, and doing it in little bite-sized pieces. So not the water hose approach. I would say those are the biggest things.
Yeah, really making those small steps, taking those small steps each day lead to great results. So we have a couple questions coming in. Lynn, are you okay on time for a few?
Yeah.
Okay. So first, is it possible to see a sample module of what is offered in the Food for Fuel program? And the answer is yes. If you go to the Motion Connected website and look at our blog page, there is a blog that was just posted today that gives you more information about Food for Fuel as well as a sample video. So if you'd like to see that, you can check that out. So a couple questions about nutrition. The first is, what supplements help curb the cravings or emotional eating? Going back to that emotional eating slide.
Yeah, so there's one specific supplement called Relora. It's RELORA that has been shown to reduce those cravings and emotional eating. It helps with the addictive part of emotional eating. That's probably the best supplement. I think the other supplements, it really depends on the patient. So if you have someone who's a really stressed out individual and you're dealing with adrenal issues, then you're going to want to use supplements that support their adrenal glands and reduce their stress level. If it's a hormonal imbalance patient that's causing the cravings, you want to work on their hormones. So it's hard to give generic, vague advice about supplements for that. But then there's also, there's drugs. So like there's Wellbutrin, which is a prescription medication. They've combined that with naltrexone, which can help with cravings. There's several other prescription medications as well. Phentermine, there's a newer drug that was FDA approved for weight loss called semaglutide. Again, that's kind of beyond the scope of like what an organization is going to do for their employees, but definitely something that can be done, one-on-one with a clinician.
Interesting.
So it's just nice to know, because I have so many patients who it's so hard. It's such a far goal for them that you give them that little bit of nugget, a little bit of a medication or a supplement just to get them to that point, get them over the hump, and it makes a huge difference. So it's a really nice option.
That's wonderful. That's good to know. And what are your thoughts on intermittent fasting?
It's a great question. Intermittent fasting has just been such a popular concept and topic lately. And I think there's just various thoughts about it. I think we know 100% for sure that 12-hour fasting is awesome, meaning you eat dinner at 7 p.m. or you finish eating dinner at 7 p.m., do not eat until 7 a.m. the following morning. So I think if you're talking to a broad array of people, that is the safest way to tell them to fast, So, and people think fasting is so scary, but then when you say, oh no, it's just don't eat for 12 hours, that makes more sense. But you think about it, so many of us eat until 9, 10 o'clock at night, and then we wake up and have breakfast at 6 a.m. So many of us, and I do that all the time, so many of us are not actually truly fasting, and our bodies really need that period of rest from digestion to do other things that we need to do. So I think that's the safest thing to do. And then if you're getting into like 16-hour fasts, I think that has to be done on an individual basis, like one-on-one with a clinician, because it depends on a lot of different things.
Okay. I've heard the term scheduled eating in relation to intermittent fasting. Is that kind of a good correlation, or what intermittent fasting really is, or not so much?
I haven't heard a lot about scheduled eating. I think if I would guess that the concept means like don't graze all day, just have your certain meals, maybe have 2 meals a day and 1 or 2 snacks. And that's definitely a good choice. I get a little bit about anything that's too scheduled or too structured or too restrictive. So I'm more of an intuitive eater, and I preach intuitive eating, meaning really start to get in tune with your body and understand what a hunger cue is, and then differentiate that from an emotional eating cue, so that okay, I actually am really hungry, I need to eat, versus, oh, I'm really stressed, I need to eat. And I think getting in tune with your body is probably the most important thing in relation to that. So I would probably push towards that more.
Okay, that's interesting. And that brought up our next question, which is breakfast, or thoughts on breakfast. Sure. Is it absolutely something that we have to eat to start the day, to kickstart our metabolism?
No, I think that's been disproven for sure. There are a lot of people that do 16-hour fasts who won't eat till 11 or 12 o'clock, and who do really, really well with that. And there's a lot of people that that's not the best choice for. And like I said before, it really has to do with your cortisol levels and your sex and your age and your activity level. There's lots of different things that come into play with that. But again, you can always go back to that intuition and that body awareness. And if you feel better not having breakfast and you're not having issues with obesity and weight gain, it's probably fine for you. I have, out of my 3 kids, I have 1 kid who never eats breakfast, and I'm fine with that. He just doesn't want to eat breakfast. So I think it's just really understanding your body and what your needs are.
And listening to it. So do you recommend a place that people could go to check out intuitive eating or learn more about it?
No, I don't. I definitely have it in my Food for Fuel program. But I would say, I think using a web search and just Googling it, or you doing a web search on intuitive eating is probably your best way to do it. I'm sure there are some really good books about it. I don't have a specific resource for that though.
Okay. Where can we find you? Where can we learn more about Food for Fuel, but also about your approach and what you're doing?
So I would say the best place is my website. It's really easy to find. It's lynnkwagner.com. If you're into social media, I definitely dabble in Instagram and Facebook, and I got recently into TikTok, which is really fun. So I definitely do some stuff on social media, but my website is probably the easiest place to go. And I do have my courses online, like Food for Fuel is on there. The full package Food for Fuel is on there. So that's probably the best place to go.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for everyone who joined us. We will have our next session on our Great Cultures webinar on Thursday, April 21st at 11 o'clock Central Time. And Kathy Ellis, who is just a wonderful human, is going to join us from Granite Group Benefits. She is our Director of Health and Wellness. And this is going to be a very, very honest, maybe eye-opening for employers and brokers, but very honest conversation about what she is seeing in her environment in the now normal. So registration is up for that. You can go to our blog page at motionconnected.com and see that as well. Lynn, again, thank you. Thanks everyone for joining.